Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And today we're going to be talking about the debut album from Joey Bada, titled Badass. Of the many album requests I get every single day, this is probably the most requested album thus far in 2015. The rapper landed on the XXL freshman list, but had no major airplay singles and was actually preferring to stay independent rather than sign to a major label. A new rapper erupting out of Brooklyn, affiliated with Big Crit and Mick Jenkins, with critically acclaimed mixtapes and a visceral sound and flow that definitely grabbed a lot of attention. Yep folks, it's time to talk about Joey Bada, affiliated with Pro Era, who erupted into the game around 2012 with his hit mixtape 1999, which drew a lot of attention from hip-hop heads and critics and started getting him some major hype. As it was for me, Joey Bada always struck me as a very good rapper with a lot of talent and definitely a strong technical lyricist, but I was waiting for him to put together a more cohesive project that rose above his old school boom bap flavor. Because sure, I definitely preferred that more lyrical focus that he took in terms of his technical craft. I could respect that, but I wanted to see what it was that separated it out from his old school influences. Now, he followed 1999 with the even more slick and melodic Summer Nights, and sure, I liked it, it was enjoyable, but there was a certain lack of immediacy and punch to it that meant it wasn't exactly a mixtape that I was inclined to revisit. Definitely not a bad mixtape, and I appreciate Joey Bada's increased maturity on it, but after his explosive presence on Mick Jenkins' The Waters mixtape last year, I knew I wanted to see Joey Bada bring the same fire to a project of his own. So I made sure to sit down and check out his debut album titled Badass. How is it? Well, here's the thing. Badass is a damn good album that I definitely enjoy and has a lot of the elements that should really click for me. And there are definitely a fair number of songs that I thought were really great on it. But initially, it didn't really click. I can appreciate the technical construction, but for as much as I respected him as a rapper, Joey Bada wasn't clicking with me on this record. So I went in deep to try to figure out what he was really trying to say with this album and listened to it another couple of times. I was prepared to review it yesterday, just wasn't clicking, so I went in deeper and I got it. And I definitely appreciate this album a hell of a lot more. So okay, let's start with Joey Bada himself. And as an MC, I like the guy. The one word that immediately springs to mind with him when describing him is versatile. From fire spitting to more downbeat chilling tracks to more personal introspection. The last of which I wasn't really aware that Joey Bada could really pull off. And it definitely helps he's got a very distinctive voice in hip-hop. Slightly hoarse, a little bit slurred, but still displaying a layer of crisp calculation as he lays down bars after bars. He's got a knack for varying his flow and accent, often adding more of a Caribbean flavor. And even though he really can't sing all that well or hold much of a note, he's a surprisingly expressive performer. If I was gonna nitpick here, I do wish that Joey Bada would bring a little bit more visceral energy. But you know what? It fits what this album is trying to do, so I'll take it. Now the odd thing is, I'd probably make a similar complaint and nitpick about some of his production instrumentation, which, don't get me wrong here, the majority of it is absolutely great. Joey Bada got himself a slew of acclaimed producers in the vein of DJ Premier, Jay Dilla, The Roots, Hit Boy, and Static Selecta, and recruited singers like BJ the Chicago Kid, Chronix, and Maverick Sabre. Now one thing to note is that it didn't quite choose to get many guest rappers on this album. He's trying to carry it on his own. I mean, he got Dyemond Lewis from his Pro Era team, but outside of that, the only guest star he got was Rory, who does actually pretty good with a pretty aggressive, fast flow over a pretty difficult beat to rap over. But coming back to the production, the majority of it is very typical of Joey Bada, very reminiscent of the 90s, full with warm, organic grit, rough edge percussion, and chopped up jazzy samples. And as someone who likes the majority of this production, I'm a fan, there are some great beats on this album. DJ Premier's mournful piano melody has a steady, ominous bass line with hints of horns on paper trails, the sandy, cavernous pianos and cymbals of Big Dusty, the muted guitars and very crisp snares of Like Me, the ebbing waves of samples of echoing voices, horns, and synths, and gunshots and Billy the Beast against a steady low beat, the heavy boom bap flavor of Number 99 with the organs and those whirling flutters throughout the verses, the crackling warmth of the pianos, and against that very tinny vocal sample and on, with one of the better choruses on this album, and especially that old school, slightly lighter feel of O.C.B. and Curry Chicken. Now the beat that's attracted the most controversy on this album in terms of whether people like it or not is probably Escape 120, which starts off with a muted organ progression before kicking into this mid-90s scratchy dance progression. And I'm not sure if it's the more muted textures and downbeat melody of the song, or how neither Joey Bada or Rory, they don't exactly ride the beat particularly well, but I I don't know, the song doesn't quite come together. Granted, the instrumentation that really rubbed me the wrong way was on Black Beatles. It's a damn shame because I really liked the lyrics on that song. It's a really good song, but that squealing wail of a melody that came in on the chorus, it just grated on my nerves. I really did not like it. But while I could nitpick some of the pitch shifted vocals on this album, pet peeve of mine, they're not my thing. The production is pretty much great across the board. But one thing that will be immediately apparent is that it's not especially upbeat. In fact, most of these beats are downright melancholy, not so much laid back, but almost depressing. And it's an odd feel for the record, especially when you start really digging into the lyrics. Now, on the first or the fourth or even the fifth listen, Joey Badass's content doesn't really seem to be all that special or different than your standard hardcore hip-hop artist going back to the 90s. The bars are aggressive, slamming on the haters, describing his come-up full of fire, but while I appreciate the meticulous construction of his wordplay, I wasn't initially seeing anything all that new. And when paired with instrumentation that was downbeat, almost depressing, one could start to understand some of the reviews that could say that this album felt a little bit long or almost a chore to listen through. It wasn't exactly a fun record on first listen. But you know what? The devil here is in the details, and almost hidden in plain sight, because there's a reason why Joey Badass's production is this melancholic, mostly because it's designed to create a very specific mood, and that mood is loneliness. From rejection of major labels to achieving success and watching his circle of close friends that he can trust start to dwindle away, or from his very small immediate family to whom he's very close. I mean, there's a song on this album called Only Child Blues. It's emphasizing that loneliness, coupled with those feelings of isolation, also a surprising sense of humility. Joey Badass is palpably aware he's not the best rapper in the game, although his technical wordplay is definitely on the upper end, at least in my opinion. And instead of using that to garner a false sense of sympathy, he instead uses it to enhance his populism, not disparaging his own accomplishments, but just wishing he could connect more with his audience or with his faith, trying to find that common bond, that common trait that people have. It's strikingly mature and down to earth. And with lyrics like, money is the root of all evil, yet money is the root of all people, he implies how easy it is to be swayed by that money and fall into darkness, yet you still need to eat and you gotta pay rent at the end of the day. And what I really love about this album is the ending of it. Now that Joey Badass has had his success, he's not gonna wallow in it or whine about what he's lost or more money, more problems, or try to manipulate or change the perception of himself. I know he really can't change much of how people see him, but instead he's gonna reach out and try to help the community from where he came, knowing that actions speak a hell of a lot louder than words. To quote, "You've gotta give to give and then you give back." A lyric not just reinforcing that connection to his mother, but also to his community and his fans in his drive to become a better rapper and doing it on his own in his own way. And I can really respect that. In other words, Badass, it's a tricky sort of record, and one I reckon can be enjoyed in a lot of different ways. If you're nostalgic for the more conscious side of 90s hip-hop, particularly mid to late 90s, you'll definitely enjoy this record. But you dig a little deeper, you'll find an MC that's showing more layers and humanity than some of those MCs ever bothered to do without needing to succumb to your typical cheap gangsta cliches. Coupled with great technical skills, some fantastic hooks, and a message that finally managed to connect with me in a really potent way after a number of listens, this record is an easy 8 out of 10 and definitely a high recommendation. It might take a while to really sink in, but trust me, Badass does plenty to establish Joey Badass as a real presence in New York and in hip-hop as a whole. Definitely check this out. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you'd like to like and subscribe, I'd be more than grateful. Yeah, this album was awesome. 2 8s in a row. Let's hope that streak of great albums keeps on coming with Sleater Kinney and Doomtree coming up. But until then, if there's any other albums you want me to check out and coming out this year, I'd be more than happy to give them a listen. Until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.